Excuse me?
The tie.
The tie ferry?
It's a difficult one. My daughter wants to sit up here too.
Absolutely.
You're going to take the prime seat? Can you sit there for me?
May I say something funny?
Absolutely.
Your last name's not Soccer.
Well, I want to thank the board for inviting me tonight for interviewing for this position.
Oh, our pleasure. You know, the last time you were in front of the board, it was such a tough decision. The three, and it's going to be tough again, but the three people that came forward, and we don't have that often. We have a lot of vacancies on other committees.
Well, the zoning is, I do have experience in that, and it was something that I was interested in before, and I did eventually get appointed to the advisory committee, and I've been sitting on that for a number of years now, and it's been very educational. But when I saw that the position for the Conservation Commission came up, I was very excited, because that's, if you had a chance to review my resume, that's really where my expertise lies. It's, growing up in New Hampshire, I'm not a townie, but I think I'm close enough to one, having lived in the woods in New Hampshire. This is the closest thing for me, so I've only been here about 5 years, but I feel like I want to give back as much as I can to this town. It's been a great town to me and my daughter.
By judging your resume, it looks like it's your passion.
It is.
More than anything.
It is.
It's an extensive resume. I'm very impressed.
It is. Well, I started at an early age in the environmental field, from solar energy and on to, I was president of the Mystic River Woodford Brook Watershed Association in Connecticut, and went and worked for the Mashantucket Pequot tribe, also known as Foxwoods. But they had a very strong environmental department. Actually, they have one of the biggest swamps behind the casino that they work very hard to protect, and I actually wrote the wetland regulations. I wrote their wetland regulations as well as their land use law, which was then used for tribes across the country. So it definitely is my passion, and I'm just thrilled that there's this opening, and I hope I can get appointed to it and serve the town in the things that I love to do, because it's where my passion truly lies.
Would you still continue with advisory committee?
I don't think I would. I also coach soccer. I'm the travel coach as well, and I also do the newsletter for the newcomers. So I do give a lot to this town, and I don't think I'd be able to do both, and I think there might be a conflict as well there, so I would remove myself from the advisory committee if I were chosen.
Linda?
That was my question, if you were going to continue on.
Yeah,
I hear you. Trust me.
Being a single mom, and I actually work for the Environmental Protection Agency up in Boston, so I do work at home, so I have some flexibility in some of the days that I work at home where I can go out and see some of the sites that would be at issue. So I only have so many hours in the day.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
Paul?
Is she a good soccer coach or what?
Okay.
Kind of.
Oh!
I know we get a truthful
I'm
answer.
too tough. That's the problem. They're scared of me.
Val,
I'll tell you, Val's a great soccer coach. She coaches my daughter.
I try and make it fun for the girls.
Us just yelling from the sidelines.
Yelling for but that's important sometimes. You think you need to be yelled at sometimes?
She yells at me more than anybody.
You said you work for the EPA now. What do you do for them currently?
I currently am a grants policy advisor. I previously was in the Indian program and was in that for 7 years. But I was traveling an awful lot. They had me traveling every other week, and it was just a little too much. But I still am doing a few projects for them that I promised them I would do. I have 2 projects that are actually will be published in scientific peer-reviewed journals. So the science is where my passion lies, but this position came up and it didn't have as much travel. And one of my strengths, I'm a trained arbitrator and facilitator, So I do a lot of training. I do a lot of education for the region, which I enjoy as well. So that's one of the reasons why they put me in this position, was because of the training and the education that I do for the region.
Your resume is very impressive, and I think you'd be suitable to sit on a lot of boards in town, so I appreciate you coming forward. What is it that, and I know you mentioned a little bit at the beginning, but we talked earlier that you were previously interested in the zoning board. What is it that you said, you know what, Concom is it, this is where I want to spend my time? I mean, you've been so active in so many other things. Obviously, Concom will be a main priority for you, as you said.
Right.
What is it that kind of made you make that decision?
A lot of things. Like I said, I grew up in New Hampshire. I'm an advocate, environmentalist. I always have been. As you can see from my resume, I've volunteered for a lot of environmental activities, from being the president of the Watershed Association to volunteering my time in any way that I could for conservation. I think you can take the girl out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the girl. It's just part of me is protecting and nature. My parents were out in Jackson Hole, Wyoming for a long time. I climbed the Grand Teton. I'm a ski racer. You know, I just spent so much of my time in the wilderness that I want to do everything that I can to preserve what little nature we have left. I also live next to Conservation Commission. My property borders conservation land. I just feel that in working for the tribes, I guess I adopted a lot of their philosophies, learning how to live and have a different respect now for Mother Earth, if you'll excuse the native term, but it's something that's part of me. It's, you know, the other activities were interesting and educational, but they're not where my passion lies, which is doing everything I can to ensure that we protect what we have for the next generation.
It's interesting. I think what you said about working for the tribe and kind of having that unique frame of reference that, you know, certainly we don't get to see too often. That's impressive. I appreciate that.
Well, I learned a lot. The gentleman that stole me from Foxwoods was actually a Penobscot tribal chief, and he worked for EPA, and so I got to work under his direction for 7 years, and I learned an awful lot, and I want to do everything I can to carry on what he taught me and what the tribes have taught me.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. So what do you envision yourself really pushing, or if anything, you know, your first year on Conservation Committee? Is there a certain thing you say, I'll improve this one specific thing, or is it just kind of going with the flow with the committee?
It's going with the flow. I don't have any agendas that I want to push. I want to make sure that we protect what we have here in Foxborough.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I think the Conservation Commission has done a great job, and I'd be honored to serve with the committee members that are on. I think they...
Do you think, are there any times you'd have to recuse yourself as a member of the EPA?
I have done that. The issue came up with the property in Foxborough that we were looking, the remediation project.
Parking lot, right?
Yeah, the parking lot, and I did recuse myself, even though there probably wasn't a conflict of interest. I like to err on the side of being cautious, especially with our regional administrator. He prefers that. So with EPA's jurisdiction as far as wetland regulations is really enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's Army Corps that takes that lead. So I think that those instances would probably be rare. I know we do have some of the Conservation Commission here, so I'm sure they could answer how often that's come up. I don't know, but I have no hesitation, even if there's the thought that there may be a conflict, I would recuse myself.
But you're not aware that, oh, it's going to be left and right?
I actually checked with my, I have to apply to hold a position if I want an outside position with the agency, so I put in that request in the chance that I was possibly going to be appointed, and that was approved. So, and I spoke to a number of employees who actually have served. A gentleman who retired, who had been with the agency for 40 years, I went to his retirement party, and he actually said that he served on his town conservation commission for 30 years. So I did do some research because I was concerned about that, and I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Good. Thanks.
Val, thanks for coming in. I'm interested in, you seem to have, or bring to the interview table anyway, a wealth of knowledge in terms of environmental protection. Can you tell us a little bit about what does that mean to you, environmental protection? And do you see your role as a Conservation Committee member, one, to protect the environment?
I think as being a licensed arbitrator, a mediator, and a facilitator, I've learned that there's a balance there. Sometimes environmentalists can cut their nose to spite their face, so I try not to do that. I do think you have to look at the bigger picture and make sure that you're being fair and that equity reigns with any decision that you make. So I'm not the type of person who is going to make a decision for or against merely just to protect the environment. My decision will be based on the facts presented in front of me, and I would do whatever I could to ensure that whatever project is being presented is not harming the environment in any way, and that all mitigation alternatives have been considered. I think a lot of times what happens is people don't identify all the alternatives, and I think that's something that I would like to see, is to make sure that if there is going to be harm, that all possible alternatives and options have been analyzed and assessed. And I think that would be the one thing that I would try and bring, is to make sure that that all options have been analyzed prior to any harm being done. But to me, environmental protection is making sure that a balance is reached and that the best balance is reached.
I like interesting the way you put it. I guess a part of my example is I know that there was a situation where a nonprofit in town built a parking lot, and whether the labor that was used to build the parking lot or not was donated, I'm not sure. But the Conservation Commission had to get involved because there had been some clear cutting in the wetland without any coming before the commission. How would you handle a situation like that? I mean, is that a citable offense? And when you're looking at somebody invading a wetland and cutting within a wetland, is that an important factor in the balance?
Absolutely. I mean, the trees, the roots of the trees help to absorb a lot of the water and the runoff. And I mean, I don't know the facts enough. I don't think that's enough for me to, I'd like to make informed decisions, so it's hard for me to say, Jim, I think I would have, I'm just hearing it from your perspective. I would want to hear it from the proponents and the opponents' perspective.
I just throw it out as an example
Right.
of something that I read where I think the Conservation Commission had to issue a citation or a warning, or it was, you're cutting within wetlands kind of thing.
Well, if you see from my resume, I was the Chief of Enforcement for the Narragansett Bay Commission for a number of years, and that was a very interesting role. I was in my 20s, about 20 years ago, and I had people come in and say, oh, honey, I love the Bay, what are you talking about? So I have served in a role as an enforcer. I have no problem with that, and if in fact what they're doing is harming the environment, then absolutely a citation, if they're in violation of any of the Conservation Commission laws or the wetland regulations, a citation should be issued in that.
I guess that's the answer to my question. When you were talking earlier about balance, we get back into when you have to make a tough decision and enforce a rule in favor of the wetland or in favor of the environment, the equities tip in favor of that. You're capable of doing that.
I was the Chief of Enforcement for the Narragansett Bay Commission for a number of years. I also, when I worked for the Mashantucket Pequot Tribe, the Environmental Department, any wetland activities had to be brought before our department, and we reviewed the plans, and we issued the permits, and we issued violations, and I was the one responsible for issuing those violations against the companies when they didn't put in proper proper stormwater prevention, the fences and the bales of hay and other, so I actually I've been in that role as inspector and enforcer in a number of my positions.
Thank you, John. Mark?
I'm good, thank you, Valerie.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And no more yelling on the soccer field either, right?
Well,
Take care of you.
I've been trying to be very positive.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Valerie.
Thank you.
I don't know if everybody stayed. I think a few of us people left. Is Russell Papard here?
Russ isn't.
James Rehill. I thought I saw him, he left. And Diane?
Diane withdrew her
Yeah, she
Oh,
application.
she withdrew.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Jay.
Well, Mr. Bomberg is sick. Can maybe, since Bob's here,
No, good point. Thank you.
Can you tell us some of the things that Concom has been doing over the course? How long has Harry been with you, and what kinds of things have you worked on? And
Okay, Harry.
Kinda why I wanted-
Yeah, okay. Harry's been a member, I think, for close to 20 years. I did a little research recently, and the average, outside of Judy here, she's only been with us for 7, but the rest of us have been on for more than 20 years. And with that, we've had a lot of determinations, wetland determinations, notices of intent, site walks, innumerable site walks, going out, investigations, delineation, right? A developer comes in with a set of plans. A number of years ago, they used to come in and say, I want to put this building here. And then we would go back and forth. Well, you're too close to the wetlands here, your stormwater is not adequate there, etc. So now the developers have gotten a little bit more intelligent, and rather than designing a building, then coming before us, they'll come in and say, all right, this is our property, these are the wetland delineations as we see them. Will you go out and verify the delineations? We'll verify them, and we'll have the hearing for that. Then, with that knowledge, they know what they can plan, what size building, shape, and form of the building. So it's changed, it's evolved over the last 10 years or so. And it's worked out much better for both sides, actually, because we don't get the sob stories that, well, I've got this building designed, why can't I build it? And we say, well, you're disturbing the wetlands. And so now it's a much smoother flow when they come in that way. So
a couple of things. I was talking to Mr. Marshall and asking some questions of Valerie. Well, how does the board go about, the commission go about deciding if someone is in violation of a wetland, or what kinds of measures do you take? Are there half measures? Do you cite right away? Do you warn? And what kind of internal debate does that kind of thing generate? Certainly, all these years, I mean, you guys must think we're all kids here. You've got 20 years. Mark and I got 3 on this board. But what kinds of debate does that generate, and how do you resolve when you have differences?
most of the time the debate is not on the board, although we have known to disagree over certain issues. But most of the debate is exactly where are the wetlands, and that's involves the site walk. As I say, the planner developer will bring in a set of plans and say XYZ Environmental has flagged the wetlands, and then we'll take them, we'll schedule a hearing, but in the meantime we'll go out, Dave and Mr. Hockin have been experts at this, go out and say, we agree with flags 1 through 5, but 6 and 7 need to be moved 10 feet this way or whatever. And so they'll come back in to our meeting, and then we'll have a joint meeting and go out and do a site walk with the developer and the board, and we'll agree to disagree on a few of them, but Mr. Hockin has had an excellent record. I don't think we've lost, so we'll miss him very much.
Thank you, Bob. think that tells us some of the work that you've been doing to protect our environment and protect the wetlands and take
Well,
that
we
on behalf of
work
Mr.
within,
Lumber.
well, we have guidelines too. We cannot be just arbitrary. We have, you know, the rules and regulations, approved by the town, approved by the state. So we can't go out willy-nilly and say, well, I don't like this developer and the heck with them. We do have rules to follow.
Oh, that, one more point, and I know it's getting late, but it came up when Mr. Marshall was here earlier. From time to time, your commission has to make rulings or judgments regarding water issues that involve town land.
Certainly.
And the Water and Sewer Department is subject to the same rules and regulations as any developer.
Same as the highway and state
Schools.
highway, schools, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Mark, can I just ask a
Sure.
procedural question while you're here? I just, actually, you guys are staying for executive anyway, so. But, we got a memo from Concom saying that you guys had interviewed or reviewed the applications for new members.
Yes.
And then I think there was some, I don't know, request to interview or something. Did you guys interview or speak with everybody that applied?
No.
You haven't,
No.
okay. Mike,
Valerie, well, you talked to Val.
No, Valerie came in.
Yes, Valerie and Russ Park came before us.
and the only reason why I'm asking is would it affect you guys if I mean, I think we're all comfortable when we take this up, appointing Harold, obviously, later on. But for the newer members, if we had to wait for you guys to go through your process and meet with everybody, and then for us to have the opportunity to meet with everybody that applied, would that affect you guys going forward over the next couple of weeks and acting on the things that you need to act on? I mean, I don't
Well,
want to...
as you know, our board has 7 members. As long as Harold is automatically reappointed, that'll give us 5. We will have a quorum.
Right.
I know Mr. Davis unfortunately travels. He's still one of the working guys
Right.
that travels. And I will say that the attendance on the commission has been excellent. We've never had to cancel a meeting for lack of quorum. So
The only reason why I say it is because I also received the call on my way in tonight that there was somebody that didn't know they were supposed to be here. They got the application, and I think it was Mr. Rehill, and was really interested in it. And then I know there was a couple of people that...
Russ Papard.
Russ Papard that I wanted to reach out to.
I'll have to call him because...
As long as we have a quorum, I don't think it's a problem.
All right, I just don't want to get in the way. I mean, somebody made the statement earlier tonight, too, that, you know, is this just going to be political in nature? And I think to avoid any of that, we kind of do our due diligence. I just don't want to get in a position where you guys can't do your work over the next couple of weeks while we wait to talk to people, that's all.
I would say as long as you reappoint Harold. then
Okay.
we'll-
It's a good point, Paul, but your board doesn't have any alternates.
No, never had to.
Well, we've had 2 members
Yeah, they're,
leave this year, where
Yeah.
an alternate could have stepped right into play to keep a quorum in line. I'm wondering if
no,
something...
well, the appointments are for 3 years, so under normal conditions, the appointments are, continued. This is a very unusual year for us.
And us too, I
Okay.
think.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's been, I've been on the board over 20 years, and we've never not had a quorum in 20 years, so, it's not really an issue.
Okay. That said, all right, I want to move on here. James DeValis, I see you sitting there very patiently, active member of the community. Does your wife want to come up with you?
You can ask her.
She's already standing up. I'm sorry to keep you waiting.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, absolutely no hurry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and
You'll have to introduce your wife for the record. though.
sure. For the record, my name is Jim DeVellis. I'm a resident for Mackenzie Lane. My wife Nicole, also a resident for Mackenzie Lane. Thank you for the time. I'll try to be brief. Last week I had submitted a letter to the Selectmen asking to come. I'm at the beginning stages of exploring the possibility of bringing an artificial turf or a synthetic field, it's called different things, to the town of Foxborough. What I'm envisioning happening is we put together a private group of anyone that's excited and interested, raise private funds through different methods, select with the town's input a field or a piece of property in town. It may be an existing field, or it may be town property that is not a field, and construct a synthetic field all through the private efforts, and then when it's done, turn it back to the town, and the town would then operate it through whatever means that they would, whatever committees or the rec department or the school, to run it. I've been...
Who's going to mow it?
Nobody would mow it, but nobody would have to pick up the goose droppings either. I've been talking about this for probably about a year now. I coach lacrosse for a number of years, and my kids, I have 3 of them. They're into soccer and baseball and lacrosse and what have you. And every place that I go, whether it's a parent or another coach or someone in the rec department, thinks it's a brilliant idea. It's been talked about for a long time, but never got to the point where it's within the realm of possibility. Over the last couple of weeks, I've talked to a number of the different town departments, some of the sporting groups. I actually went over to Walpole. They did a similar effort. Probably about 2 years ago they started. They're just shy of $1.7 million. They've constructed a synthetic field at their high school within their football field. They did a 6-lane track and some amenities, some lights. And they said it was just an amazing effort. The community, when I say the community, everybody, all the different sports pulled together, whether it's baseball, soccer, lacrosse. I think the lacrosse people are the people that initiated it, but spread the word, and it's equally shared. And the reason I'm here in front of you guys tonight is if it does go forward, this is something that's going to need Selectmen's approval since it's going to be on town property. And it really needs to be in the spirit of community, people chipping in and helping. And I'm looking to start that effort now through Deb Giardino. We set up a June 19th meeting, which is Thursday night at 7:30 up at the Mill Street the rec hall. And what I'm interested in doing is hearing from people if there's excitement and if there's people that have an expertise that they could volunteer. One of the first people I called was Bill Buckley over at Bay Colony. I know him through soccer. And without hesitation, he said he would provide the survey services for the field, depending on where it is. He can provide the survey. I'm willing. I have a small engineering firm. I've been doing, as part of my business for the last 10 to 12 years, synthetic fields. And I'm willing to provide the civil engineering services, the design services. I spoke to a local attorney. They're very willing to provide the expertise to set up a nonprofit. So the level of excitement that I'm getting is phenomenal. And I wanted to get it kicked off before the summer came, use the summertime to put together a group, and then run with it in the fall.
So your main purpose to just introduce this to the board right now?
Just to get your preliminary feedback. I don't know if it's, from my understanding, it hasn't been in front of the board before. If it goes forward, I think at some capacity you would have to sign off on the idea and accept the field and accept the donations. But this is really my first formal step to get it moving.
So you're just looking for the board's blessing to continue?
It's as simple as that.
Well, you got mine. Linda?
Sure, I mean, I'd be interested in coming down to the meeting, the first meeting, and seeing what folks around town are thinking, and the recreation department themselves, what they think about it. But congrats for stepping up. That's a big step.
Yeah, I think it's.
Going places
I think it's.
I know he is.
I think it's. I think it's the right time. You know, there's. You know, I should said this at the beginning, but I am on the advisory committee, and I don't think it's a conflict. But I've had some insight into the budget, and I know for the next 5 years it's not in the budget. And I know all the towns around are having it. Mansfield's building their second. And with the population and the new sports, it's time for it to come, and I think it's the right time.
Paul?
You haven't set up an account yet for any fundraising?
Nothing. But I'd be willing to take the first dollar.
Yeah, 'cause I was going to reach into my wallet, but that would be illegal, too.
Yeah,
so I don't want to do that yet.
I'll be honest with you, Paul. Civil engineering, I know about the fundraising and that avenue I'm learning. So
that's people like Linda and other people in town that have been doing it for years. They're just pros at it. So I think there's plenty of talent in town to help you out with it. I'm thrilled. I think especially you bring up lacrosse. I mean, we've seen such an uptick, I think, across the country, but especially in this region in lacrosse. And the more kids that get active, especially in a sport like lacrosse, I think the better off we are.
Yeah, I mean, this weekend by itself, I mean, you had the Foxborough Cup, which was phenomenal. The boys and girls hundreds and thousands of kids coming in. That was very well run. We had the first time the NCAA came, and there was 50,000 people at Gillette. They actually invited my Ed Walters, another coach, and myself. We split up the team, and we played at halftime for the NCAA. So we're starting to see the benefits of the synthetic and the kind of the community spirit with the sports here.
That's great. That's good. Great for the NCAA and the Patriots for having you guys up there. I mean, that's great for the community out there. Like I said, putting kind of an all-purpose field in, if that's the vision, which I get the impression that it is, an all-purpose field in that we can use throughout the year. That's not subject to being ripped apart. One of the things that FMF does such a great job at Foxborough Midget Football over the years is keeping that field in great shape. But it takes one rainstorm, and that's it. You're blown out of the water. I mean, it's tough to catch up. So I think it's a worthy cause. It's going to take a ton of work, but you have my blessing going forward.
Thank you.
I think the spring scheduling turned into such a nightmare with the rain and
Sure.
protecting the fields, and it could just get so much use from just one field, multiple sports. It could be a great thing.
Great.
Jim, what specialties are you missing? So you're looking for more fundraisers and...
Yeah. Speaking to the people from Walpole, they raised 1.7 in probably about 2 years, and that's with a field and track and amenities. If we have a group together, kind of a master plan group, and it decides that the best place is at the middle school. You look at that, it's probably going to be less than $1 million. You already have a lot of the infrastructure, the parking, the lights. If it's a new field, it's probably going to be closer to the 1.7 because you need parking and all that stuff. So the first committee is to kind of reach out to all the different departments and say, from a master plan, is it the state hospital, is it the middle school, is it time that the high school gets a field, or maybe someplace else, so a group to look at that. Fundraising. Some people had some great ideas that have been involved with the JCs. They had some great direction. But from what Walpole is telling me, that it kind of waxes and wanes. You get spikes and it goes down. So a group to just kind of keep it going. A group for advertising to get the word out there. There's a lot of different venues that it can be pursued to raise the money. So.
And is it an opportunity to actually make money once this thing's up running? I mean, not to be a profit center, but to
Yeah. No, we've the ones that I've worked on. We started with colleges and universities, then went on to high schools, private and public, and then a lot of community groups, put them together. And what I'm seeing is once it's built and the initial investment is there, they run it like a business. There's, you wouldn't charge the youth groups per se, but you would charge an over 40 soccer league that would come in. I know, talking to some of the people that run the soccer, they've been looking to come into town. They go to Mansfield right now because the field's not available here. Different organizations that can come through 12 months a year and use the field. Walpole brought up baseball, and I was a little surprised that they reached out, but the baseball people in private baseball leagues practice there in the, early in the spring or late in the fall, so it's really a bunch of different groups. But I'm interested to see how it works with the rec department in the school, how they would want to do it.
Okay, James?
Jim, thank you for coming forward, and I just had a couple of questions. One is in terms of where to go to make the rounds. If you're looking at school property, and I could be wrong, but I think one of the weird places you want to go is to the school committee. Traditionally, the town does share some responsibility for maintenance of the school grounds, but the school shares control, and I even think if you look at our Town Manager Act, that one of the town manager is in charge of town lands, so you would think that you were in the right place, but I think the schools are specifically excluded. So you might want to make the rounds there and talk to those guys and let them know what you have in mind, because I just think you've got to it's almost the first stop. I'm the kind of selectman that's going to look at the bottom line first. You're proposing something that doesn't have a cost to the town. However, the town does maintain whatever field might be replaced, and there's a value to that.
Sure.
And at some point, the town may be willing to recognize that value in some way or another and chip in on that. Are you saying that the field, we have a field with lights, it doesn't get used now by an over 40 soccer league because we don't encourage it?
This was kind of a conversation I had over the weekend at the Foxborough Cup, that you know, a lot of people are excited, and they're saying, I actually joined a league, we can't do it here, we have to do it at Mansfield, and that's as far as the discussion went. Just to backtrack a little bit, I said you guys are the first group. I actually did speak to Andy Gala, the town manager, for his initial support or take on it. He was very supportive. And I did have 2 meetings with Dr. Martis over at the school, and he set up the second meeting with the principal and some of the people there. Because I've learned long ago there's local politics with football and soccer and promises of the past. So I think generally they all supported it and said keep going and keep us involved. So this is really the third group, but I wanted to make you feel good.
Sure. That's all right. We're kind of used to not feeling good when we leave here. So
We need it.
sometimes goes. Well, I think it's great. It's a lot of money, but it's a project that I would love to see come to Foxborough if there were a way to tap some resources from the community that's willing to make donations and that kind of thing.
Walpole said basically 75% of the money came from businesses, how they did it. They also somehow found grant money.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's great, but
They came
you
to
will.
us. They came to us, JC Trust.
Oh, they
I
did?
remember
Walpole did?
Walpole coming. I'm
Okay.
thinking, that's Walpole.
Unfortunately, I own a business, and everybody's always pounding on the door for those donations.
Yeah.
And it's been very difficult, especially this year. I mean, we
Yeah.
did donate to the Fox Monopoly one and everything else, but you do end up saying, no. So I would just say, walk on the caution there where
Yeah.
everybody's having a tough year.
Yep.
Kinda
I
don't-
absolutely
Yep.
agree.
Don't push, you know.
Absolutely. There's, you know, the first thing people say is go to the crafts, and, you know, that's, you know, we can talk about avenues later, but I'm very cautious of the economy. I'm a business owner myself, and when I called up Bill Buckley, the first thing I said is I'm not asking you for money, because people get tired of it after a while, and it's certainly not a necessity, it's a luxury, so I put it in that perspective.
And
Thank you.
work through our state senator and our state rep too. I'm sure there's things that they can think of that,
Sure.
you know, that we won't, whether it's grants or earmarks or whatever it is. I'm sure they'll have some insight for you.
I have no doubt you'll get this done. It might take some time. I have
It
no
may.
doubt in my
It may.
mind that you'll get this done. So,
Hopefully in time for our kids to play on it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Grandkids.
Grandkids. All right, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for
Good
coming.
job.
Move on to action. What do you want? I mean, it should take us, what, 10 minutes to go through these actions, and we'll take a 5-minute recess, because my eyes are popping out of my head.
Sounds good to me,
You
Mr.
know?
Chairman.
That way we can move along, because we can send Frank home instead of at midnight. Okay, Sandy, you've got the
Okay, the
The
first,
ball.
first item on action are the minutes of May 13th and May 20th. Your approval.
I did have a problem. Let's see. Revised. The vote. Reorganizing the board
Which minutes are you
is
doing?
the 13th. We reorganized the board. James, I believe, made the motion to reorganize the whole board, not just myself. Here it states that I made the second motion, make Paul vice chairman, Linda Wallace clerk. I made no motion. That was you, James, all at once, right?
Right, and I think Paul Mortensen seconded the motion.
Okay.
So,
Both motions were made by James
If
as
I-
one, but you make
Yeah,
up, yeah.
It's something like this. If you take that and move it up there,
okay. Mhm.
and then it's seconded by Paul, and then you can strike all that, okay?
I had one other thing. Oh, yeah. No, it wasn't.
This goes to, I mean, this whole thing,
Did you see the
um,
letter and the information for Delaney chairman?
Okay,
okay,
Yeah.
and this is
3 years.
Mortensen,
okay.
and the rest of this can come out.
Okay.
I'm
Some
sorry.
information?
Oh, yeah,
That was fun.
yeah, he's still
Okay.
listed on as a member. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
Jim, can you just state what that was?
Well, it's just, the change, was what Mark stated. We took, after the vote, 5-0, strike motion by Mark Sullivan, 2, and And then move, elect Paul Feeney as vice chairman and Linda Walsh as clerk. Pauline, I don't think I circled that as clerk. Move it up after board
Got it.
and strike the vote and change Feeney to Wilson.
Okay, anybody else?
I was just on the 13th, and I can go over and say to Pauline, talking about second page, Paul Mortensen noted that this proposed definition would be helpful in determining the scope of work.
Excuse me, which paragraph?
Oh, I'm sorry, the last full paragraph,
Review committee?
5 lines up, talking about the definition of home business. Basically, it would help promote economic development, period. And really what I said was, he also questioned whether the RFP could take into account possible.
Also questioned if the RFP could.
So basically, I realized home employment wasn't going to require mitigation.
Anything else?
Pauline, do you want me to hand that to you? I wrote it out, or you got it?
No, because I didn't get the end of it. So if you,
Yeah, basically.
also questioned whether I could take into account. Okay, all right, that's.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have any corrections? Okay,
Motion that we accept the minutes of May 13th as amended.
motion made.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's the 13th. Did anybody have a problem with the 20th?
I'm sorry. This was attached to, Mark, you asked me, I said no. It's right at the end. Can I
Go ahead, reopen it.
move to reopen these minutes because there was just a mistake, Pauline, I'm sorry. Under new old business, next to the last page,
Well, we'll have to first second the motion. for
move
Jim.
to reopen discussion on the minutes of May 13, 2008.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
The last paragraph, next to the last page, it was not the Neponset Reservoir, Cocasset River.
Here, the last page.
Right, regarding the Cocasset River. And the last word in that paragraph, not mitigation, but litigation.
Okay.
Well,
And then the
Go
next
back,
paragraph.
excuse me, can you just
Sure.
repeat that, because I didn't have the page, so.
Oh,
So the last word is litigation.
L, yeah.
Yeah.
instead of Neponset Reservoir, it's supposed to say Cocasset River
Okay.
at the top
Right.
of the paragraph.
And again, on the following page, Neponset Reservoir should say Cocasset River.
Oh,
I thought that was on the next set of minutes, I'm sorry.
Actually, I was looking, I thought he had amended these minutes twice, and I couldn't find it, but town committee appointment renewals, which is 5th page in, 6th page in. The last paragraph, it says, Jim Thrasher said the responsibility of the board to take a look and see what's going on. Jim Thrasher said it would be a good opportunity to review the appointments the board makes. He also interested in generating interest in the people who would like to get involved in town government. And then it says he said in terms of services by town council. That was me who said that, Jim. The last line. That wasn't you, was it?
What page are you on?
It's the 6th one in. It's all the starts. The top is Foxborough Diabetes against diabetes, and the bottom town committee appointments.
Right.
I believe the last sentence, second to last sentence, I said. Third line up starts with he.
mm-hmm,
I believe that was me, not James.
Mark, right.
okay.
And that's about it. So now, Want to try the motion again? I think we're good, right?
Motion to accept the May 13th minutes as amended.
Second. Motion been made, second. Any discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Second, Paul.
Myself. Mark.
Okay.
Okay. Now the 13th?
No, the 20th.
That was the 20th.
No, that was the
No,
third.
that was the 13th.
No, I'm really backwards. You're right. Okay, now the 20th.
Yeah.
Okay. Did anybody have a problem with these minutes?
Motion to accept the May 20th meeting minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Item number 2 is a request from Jerry Cirillo at the Boyden Library to accept one gift, which is from the Foxborough J.C.'s for $250, and a check from the Department of the Commonwealth of Mass, the Department of the State Treasurer. And this is money that they're receiving. It was a class action suit, and this is money that they're receiving back from mitigation. So the total on the request would be $575.86.
Motion allow the Foxborough Library to accept a check from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in the amount of $325.86 and from Foxborough JACs for $250.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, Sandy.
Number 3 is from the Fire Department, Chief McNamara. It's a request of an acceptance of a donation to the Fire Department gift account in the amount of $1,000.
James, did we had a similar check like this?
Right, and I think the question is, and this looks like it's from a Foxborough resident.
It
The
is.
question is when when a business makes a donation,
I
is
don't
there
really
some
wonder why.
reason to look beyond the donation?
Okay.
This is pretty much a
I would
thank you.
hope, I would think that a Foxborough resident making a donation was doing so because of
It
maybe
has to
something.
do with their daughter.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I checked on
Entertain
it.
a motion, James?
Motion to accept the gift of Miss Paula Bishop to the Foxborough Fire and Rescue Department Gift Fund.
Second.
Any discussion? All those, James?
It was a $1,000 gift.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, typically we'd send a letter of
Jerry did.
acknowledgement. Jerry did?
Yeah,
The board doesn't so?
It's attached. Jerry's already thanked Miss Bishop for the letter, for the
Y-
money.
If the department prefers to do it, I always defer to them. If they want me to do it, then I do it.
Okay, right.
We either office covers the base with
Fourth
that
year
one,
up here,
so.
I'm still learning. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Next, Sandy?
Item number 4 is an invoice for $7,500 for Maya.
Yep.
It's a deductible billing.
This is on an insurance claim?
Yeah.
Suit,
On a lawsuit?
Yes.
What lawsuit is this?
Top, right under charges,
it's under
Jim.
charges, claim it.
Right.
Yep. I don't know if we can really discuss that.
Yeah.
It's still pending.
Probably shouldn't be in action.
And I got kind
Well,
of,
I've got to
but
pay the
the-
bill.
she's got to pay the bill. I
I
mean,
have
we
to pay
can't
the bill.
discuss this at all.
Can we discuss, John,
Nothing. We can just discuss to pay the bill, that's it.
the general, what person suing the town? I mean, just.
I know.
Don't-
Well, I think there's a misunderstanding. Just because you ask a question about a lawsuit, that doesn't require an executive session. An executive session is an exception. The law prefers open discussion of all matters. I'm just wondering what lawsuit this is. It seems to be one after another. Is this a new
This
lawsuit?
is, no, it's
Oh,
not.
no.
It's an old
This is an
law.
old lawsuit.
I can tell you.
Is it a slip and fall, a personal injury, or?
Oh, no.
Um,
I don't even want to, I mean,
I
I'm
could
just
pull the file
erring on the
if
side
you'd
of caution
like.
where I don't want to discuss exactly what it's about. I can tell you an executive session coming up, I think legally, quickly, but I mean,
All right, Sandra, I won't press it. If you can ask Andy to just look
I
into
will.
it for the next meeting so that we know what the
Okay.
basis of this particular lawsuit is, I make a motion that we approve the payment of the $7,500 deductible to MIIA Property and Casualty dated April 8th, 2008.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 5 is the request to increase the taxi fares from John Della Rosso from Foxborough Town Taxi. And I did call him and I had a discussion with him. The reason why he would like to increase now is because his insurance has gone up, and for all of us with the gas prices, obviously it's become an issue for him. His last increase was 15 years ago. I also included on the second page for you a taxi survey the town of Sharon was kind enough to share with us that they just finished performing. That gives you an idea of the rates that the different towns have allowed for taxi fares.
Any discussion on this matter?
Well, that's what we asked Andy in your office to do, was to take a survey, and it hasn't increased in 15 years.
I don't know how. I really don't know how. But I mean,
I'd make a motion to approve the taxi rate increase requested by Foxborough Town Taxi, Inc.
Second,
any discussion?
just for the record, the increase is to, from $3 to $4 for the first mile, and from $2.50 to $3.50 for each mile thereafter.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 6 is a request from the Foxborough J.C.'s to hold their concerts on the Common this summer, and they would be held on Thursdays, and this is a normal
Yearly.
function. Right,
Yeah.
it's a yearly.
Chair, I'll make a motion, we approve the request of the Foxborough J.C.'s,
Summer concert schedule.
to use the Common for their summer concert schedule on Thursday nights.
Second. Any discussion?
Just so everybody knows, I am a member of the Foxborough J.C.'s. However, I'm not on the board, and I don't think that this has any bearing on financial abilities or anything, so will not recruit myself.
Thank you, Linda.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Andy?
Number 7 should not have been in there. I talked to Chris today. She picked it up off her desk by mistake. That
Would you
should
like
have
us?
been filed.
Would you like us to hand that back to you so you don't have to
Want to hold it
pre-print
in
it?
case we're gonna,
Again,
Yeah,
well, you're not
seriously,
going to
want
get.
us to all
I
hand
don't
it
think
back
you're going to
here?
get the same application
All right.
back, so I would worry about it.
All right, 7's gone.
Number 8 is an invitation for the first advisory group meeting of the I-95 South Corridor transportation study on June 11th. I don't know if anyone is interested in attending this. It'll be at the Bass Pro Shops at Patriot Place, so it is being held in Foxborough.
That'll strike some interest.
All interesting, just
It's the scheduling.
It does seem like we can, they're not going to be making any decisions. We could probably follow up with whomever to find out,
We need,
get materials.
what is June 11th? What's the date? The day? Is it a,
It's definitely a weekday.
yeah,
Wednesday night.
Wednesday? Well, I'll tell you what, we'll just put that on hold, Sandy.
Okay.
I'll pull that aside.
Okay.
Everybody look at their schedule, see who's available.
to go to the, on June 11th?
Yes.
I'm not.
Oh, I understand your position, James. If it's a rain day, I can do it sometimes, is all I'm saying, you know, because I'm local. All right,
Number 9 is an election ballot from the MBTA Advisory Board. There's 2 members. There would be 1 representative from a town and 1 representative from a city. So there's a ballot attached. I don't know if the board is.
How did we handle
Is
this
it-
last year? Did
we didn't reply, I don't think.
Yes, we were contacted by one candidate
Right.
from one of the cities who made some favorable statements about how it might help Foxborough, and I recommended that we vote for that candidate at the board, and the board voted to allow the chairman to sign the vote. In this case, it doesn't look like there's an election. It looks like there's a town and a city, and there's no contest. Vote for one town and one city.
That's right.
Yeah. Now I remember that change.
Should we direct our chairman to vote?
Just submit the
Is there
ballot.
an official one to sign, Sandy, or is this the one you want me to sign?
Well,
Yeah, no, it's right. You can sign it.
they'll have to be done by today at 5 o'clock, though. I don't know if that's real or,
May 28th, right?
Oh, very good.
Well, I guess
That's
that's,
absentee, though. That's absentees.
okay. Well, would the
well,
board
you're,
like me
you're
to
not
sign
going
this?
there, right?
May 28th.
You're not going there. So really, it's
It's
kind
the
of
absentee
a
ballot.
moot point.
Move point, let's move on.
Number 10 is a request from Recreation Director Debbie Giardino to appoint an alternate to the Board of Recreation. And they have one person, Anita Kloss, that they are recommending for that position.
Anita,
Plus.
I recommend that we I make a motion that we, have Anita Kloss as an alternate for the Board of Recreation. And that's a one-year appointment, is that
That appointment, yes, it's a 1 year.
to date? From today,
I've been doing them till May 1st.
okay, until May 1st, 2009.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Number 11 is a contract award for DPW supplies with our Southeast Regional Group.
Yeah, it's the annual,
Right.
and it's all in order as usual. I'll make a motion that we accept the bid sheet and award the contracts to the bidders on the list below for the SER, SG, DPW supply, the 12-month period from 7/1/08 to 7/1/09.
Second.
Any discussion?
Don't we usually read the values?
It's a public document, James. Somebody wants it, they can have it. Just trying to move it on a little
I
bit.
know you are, Mark. I just don't want to leave something undone that we are.
All right.
Could I have, Pauline, could you read back Mark's motion?
This motion to
Do you mind?
accept,
No, not at all.
motion to accept, no, to approve,
The SER, South Regional
SER, SG, DPW,
Supplies Award contract
Award.
bids.
listed below. Listed
Exactly.
below.
And then, James, for the record, I'll read them out.
Well,
It's-
no, if Mark, if I may, I think if you just amended and you've called our attention to it and you've got the total estimated value here at the end, it'll be clear as to what you're moving. It's these values on the first 3 pages.
Yes.
Not the supporting bid tallies.
Right.
Okay.
Well, so you want the total?
I think you're all right to do it that way,
Okay.
yes.
And,
Yeah.
yeah, for the total estimated value of $880,013.41.
Second, there was seconded already, right?
I think Linda did. Okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Number 12 are 3 special permits for our parking lots along Route 1. And these coincide with the parking lot permits that you'll be issuing before July 1st.
So it's
These are
just
all special
informational.
permits.
But
These,
these come in separately.
Yeah,
these are all special permits. Yes, they come
and
in
it's just
separately.
informational for the board. And Paul, this is when you'll be notified of, a lot more public hearings in case we have another situation where you have a situation where, like, I don't want that parking lot expanded. Being on the Board of Selectmen as a citizen, you can, you'll be notified. Okay, that concludes. You have any extras?
I do. I received a request today. Actually, it's an invitation, not a request.
Oh, that's right. I was gonna bring that up.
There's going to be an Eagle Scout award ceremony for Scouts Andrew Groove and Nathan McNeff on May 30th. And all of the board members have been invited to attend this ceremony. I don't know if anybody's interested or...
I won't be
Oh,
here
you
on
just
Friday.
attended one for us
Mm-hmm.
before you
Are they requesting me?
I heard you did a great job.
Thank you.
I heard you did a real good job.
What is the date of this?
Friday night.
This Friday.
I know, very short notice.
Yeah. I work Friday nights typically, but is there anyone else that can attend?
I won't be here.
Nobody's gonna volunteer first, Paul. So you put your leave on.
Everybody step forward.
Haven't seen that since the military. I was never there, but
All right, well, no, go ahead.
I think I can do it. I just have to check my calendar. I don't see why I
I
could.
have to check with my
Just
wife.
let me know tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
And
All right.
congratulations,
Right.
Andrew Groove
I
and
can't.
Nathan McNeff. Good work.
And I have one more thing. I received a phone call today from Southeast Regional School District again. They wanted to put out an invitation to the board that they would be willing to send a letter out to all of their alumni from the town of Foxborough to see if they could generate any additional interest for anyone to sit on the committee. You know, I know it's a joint school and selectmen's appointment, but they did make the offer that they would be willing to do that mailing if the board was interested.
I think it's a great idea. You know,
I think any help that they could give us in generating some interest.
right?
Okay.
Okay. Do we need we don't need a vote from the board, do we?
No,
Okay. All right. Danny, that is Sandra?
that's it.
Okay. Couple of things so we can move on. We got the Eagle Scout ceremony invitation I had received at home, and the Foxborough High School graduation. Is anybody going to be attending that? Paul? Anybody else
When my son graduates, I'm going to attend with my family,
with your family?
sit with my family.
Okay.
Don't know.
It's the 17th, is it?
Isn't it the day after Founder's Day?
Yeah. That is, no, that may
Oh,
be
it
the
is.
8th. It's the following week. It's the
Oh,
following
it's the
week.
following week? I might be able to go. Might. I went last year. Just for the record.
Yeah. I went the last two after that. It's a little hot up there.
I know it.
Then there's another invitation that we got for
Yeah,
the
for the
Sage School graduation, Friday the 13th. I'm not touching that.
Friday the 13th
Of June.
at the Sage.
And that's once again, you
9
know,
o'clock in the morning.
I wish I could. I know everybody here. We all work as public volunteers, and we have so many commitments, and it's very difficult. I thank you for the invitation. I know I cannot attend. I do have to make a living also, and in fairness to all my board members, Friday at 9 o'clock in the morning is typically very impossible. So, is anybody going to debate that, or are we all good with that statement? All right, so.
Thanks for the
I
invitation.
thank you for the invitation. Good luck to your graduating class, and then I have one more thing that I think the board. We've heard some powerful interviews here tonight, and after hearing Gordon Green, I'm going to make a motion that we reconsider the street opening permit for the roundabout on North Street. I think it was a very powerful display of how much hard work the planning board put into it, and how concerned his face was, what he had just said, that he could not stand himself if some child get killed there or somebody get hurt there in a car accident, because he felt it was the safest way that we could possibly, he looked at all the alternatives, make that for future growth a safer area. So I'm going to throw that motion out there, so I think we should notify the abutters, have another meeting with it in as maybe not the next meeting after that, and get down to it, because I never attended any of those meetings with the planning board. And did anybody else in this board attend a meeting with the planning board while that was
All I
going on?
did was spend an hour and a half with Mark Resnick that day.
As well as I spent some
Yeah.
time with those guys, and
I
And
was
that's
at,
what changed my mind.
I was at numerous meetings when it was being discussed for the Patriot Place mitigation. And with all due respect to anybody that talks about safety, certainly my decision wasn't made in the face of safety. And if you ask anybody that attended the meeting or paid any attention to the meeting, Mr. Chairman, you'll notice that I asked Mr. Dirk, who was the traffic engineer, if the same level of safety could be provided with the T intersection as opposed to a roundabout. And the answer was yes. Certainly, I think that the mitigation took on kind of two faces when they talked about different things that were going on with the roadways. One of them being to calm traffic for the purposes of slowing people down so that they would have an uncomfortable ride on the way to the stadium, which again was brought to my attention by Mr. Dirk at some of the planning board meetings, so that to make it as uncomfortable as possible so that they don't want to use that as a cut-through. I made the statement last week that if we can reach the same amount of safety at that intersection without doing the roundabout, then we should do it. I asked the question, he answered me yes, so I was comfortable. And for anybody to think that I made a decision that flies in the face of safety, or would put any child at risk, is badly misinformed and certainly doesn't know me or the passions that I have for public safety.
nobody's saying that, Paul.
Well,
I'm not saying it.
no, but there's inferences made that if you don't make that decision to put the roundabout in, then safety's not a concern. And what I'm telling you, Mark, is that I've considered all things. Like I said, I attended numerous meetings when the planning board discussed these issues. I asked the right questions last week that allowed me a level of comfort to make the decision that I made. I did try and strike a balance. I think that there is definitely a safety issue up there, and it can be addressed without a roundabout. It can be addressed with other designs. As far as Mr. Green's comments, about whether or not we can or cannot do the plans, that apparently he's privy to more information than I am, because I asked the question probably 3 or 4 times in different ways if there was a value attached to that design, and there was no value. So I don't know. I don't know whether or not it's more expensive or less expensive to do the T intersection, because on probably 3 or 4 different occasions they told me that there was no value yet, at least that they could share publicly. So I reject the inference that any decision that I made or that the majority of this board made, and I'll let them speak for themselves, for that intersection was in the face, against public safety. That's just craziness. That's absolute craziness. Street openings are going to come before us on many occasions, not simply to rubber stamp them. There was a split vote on the planning board vote. So, I think people make their decisions trying to strike a balance, and I don't think any of us are interested in anybody getting hurt. So I appreciate the passion Mr. Green shared. I share that same amount of passion for public safety, and don't think that we acted in any way against public safety.
Well, I was just wondering, I was never involved in any of the meetings. Neither was Linda. We had a 1-hour debriefing, basically, on the whole thing. You were very involved. Paul, were you? Did you go to, Mr. Morton?
No, I didn't attend the meetings, but I certainly paid attention to the presentation that was here, and I think at this point I'm disinclined to changing my vote.
Well, I'm not asking you to change your vote. I'm asking you to reconsider having.
Well, we can have them in here again, certainly, but I don't want to hold out hope that that I'm likely to be compelled based on the safety issue, because I don't think that that's the overriding concern. Well, it's not for me, I should say. I appreciate that others view it as compelling. It's not for me, because I don't think that's going to be a problem.
James?
Mark, I will admire leadership. Leadership compels things to some kind of conclusion, and sometimes it's required in order to revisit an issue. I agree that the intersection at Payson North and Cross ought not be ignored. I, too, paid close attention, and I listened to Gordon, and Gordon's an opinion I respect. There are other opinions on the planning board who I also respect. I thought of a couple of ideas. One of the reasons I made my decision was for public safety vehicles, rather than for the crossing of the street from the burgeoning neighborhood that's to come across North Street. There are alternatives, and I would very much like to have the principals in. As a matter of fact, it was on my agenda of things that I think this board needs to calendar and say, when are we going to deal with this issue? To have the representative of maybe Mr. Weinfeld, or maybe another member of the board, a representative from the Patriots. Mr. Krantz was here not too long ago. Let's find out for sure what the story is on the funding. If we're going to ask them to redesign a T intersection, when can it be done? If it's pedestrian safety, maybe that area would be ripe for a nice walking flyover bridge like we have on Route 1. It would perform two functions: one, public safety, and second, you could build it at such a level so maybe a truck couldn't get under it. Maybe these are things that we want to explore, whether we can even do that or not. So it is something that I've given some thought to. I'm not ready to go back and revisit the whole issue of the roundabout, but I'm all for putting something on for the next meeting so that we get back on board with this project and we ask them to redesign something that we could approve in terms of a street opening. So I think that's a great idea.
Well, let's vote on my motion first. Motion made second. We have discussion.
It wasn't seconded, was it? No.
I thought you did.
I didn't.
No? Well, the
no,
motion dies then. I thought it
like
was
you.
second. Okay.
I'd like to just make my comment on it is, I asked my questions. Maybe I heard my answers differently than others on the board, but I went right to the source and asked him, their consultant, what was the safest, and he answered that the Rotary was the safest. So I did go by that. That's how I made my decision. Not that it mattered, because I was the only one who voted that way. So.
So you'll also let him.
Yeah, I'm all set.
I'm not a traffic consultant or an expert, and I don't think anybody on this board is. And I think sometimes we have to listen to the experts, even though we disagree. And it's a tough situation because I really, my personal view is the Rotary's not the right thing myself. That's my personal view. But they call it a roundabout now. But I think, I don't know jack compared to those people that put this together. And I think I'm overstepping my bounds and authority by thinking I do. And I think everything was put in place, I think, to make it advertised and make it all the meetings scheduled and everything. Yeah, there was that one meeting, it was kind of weird with the planning board being pushed to make a vote that night after they said they wouldn't, but that member wasn't here from the planning board to say why he pushed for that vote that night. So I just think, I've almost been whacked there a couple of times with the way it's existing now, with the structure we have now. I had a gentleman pass me on Payson Road doing 60 miles an hour the other day on the wrong side of the road, and he blew right through that intersection. So, a couple of weeks ago. So I think the longer we sit on this, the harder it's going to be. So, I've made the motion. If there's a second or not, whatever you want to do.
Well, now, you want to move on the motion, and I'll make.
Well, I haven't got a second, so the motion dies.
Let's move forward and have a discussion at our next meeting relative to alternative designs. Let's ask the principal players to come in. We'll ask the traffic consultant to come in, ask the Patriots to come in. How soon can an alternative design be done? Let's look at squaring off the intersection. Let's explore the possibility of doing a walkover. Let's explore the probability that there's going to be a need for a light at that intersection, as Gordon said was his first indication, and let's move the project forward one way or another. Maybe we'll find out at the next meeting that there's nothing more we can do except accept the money. At the same time, we should ask, let's have that contract language brought in so we can sit here and read the contract language. What are we entitled to if we do not go forward with the roundabout? This is the business that I would like this board to get involved in at its next meeting. So I'm glad you raised it.
Okay.
I agree, Buck. I think that's important. We have to, and if you need support on that, Jim, to do that at our next meeting. I think we should. And I think you sell yourself short, Mark, too. I mean, the framers of our government, they certainly didn't expect that we'd all be experts at all these issues. I think, you have a unique frame of reference that's valuable as an elected member on the body closest to the people. I think, you have some valuable input. You're asked to deliberate, to ask questions, and make a decision. And I don't think, I don't want to see you sell yourself short or anybody else on this board. We're elected to ask the right questions, to act on behalf of the people of Foxborough. And I don't think it's expected of us to be experts on each of these issues.
Thank you.
I think that part of that discussion next week is going to be still the Rotary, the roundabout. I believe it is. So I'm fine with that too. I'm fine with the discussion of it, but I think that it will be part of it. The roundabout will be part of the discussion, as well as the T, the light, the bridge, the swinging trapeze, the whatever else we want to think of. I think it should all be brought out, right? All the different ways we could do it.
Okay.
But that should be part of it too.
Sandra, do we have room on the next agenda?
Well, I have him coming in I have the planning board coming in anyway at
that's right.
7:50.
It's a no-brainer.
So
Right.
I can put them on at 8 o'clock.
And could you ask all the members to be here? Because I would be very interested in hearing from the ones that weren't here.
I'll send them a letter, but,
I'll
that's
call Kevin personally.
up to the board.
As long as I can call Kevin and ask him that, if he's not watching. Okay, anybody else? Got something?
What, I think you may be right in what you expect, but it's something. It's a way to get a discussion going about more than the roundabout. What if we did do T?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Can we ask as part of that to have whatever the documentation is related to?
I've made a
That
note.
would affect the.
Probably have it in a
I
file
made a
someplace.
notation to try to find that.
And
Yeah.
to invite the principals that were here.
Yes.
I know Mr. Krantz, and I'm not speaking for Mr. Krantz, but I know Dan was here and involved somehow in I assume involved somehow in the project, whether Mr. Tuig wants to come back or not. The point is to bring somebody else from the developing team.
Okay, does, anybody have any more old business, new business, James?
Yes, please. I'd like to make a motion that we appoint 2 3-year terms on the Conservation Commission, expiring May 1, 2011. Harold Blomberg, Valerie Bataille, and Bernie Marshall.
There's 3 available? Second. I thought there was only 2 on this form.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark.
I'll second that motion. And I know Paul's got something to say too, but go
Well,
ahead.
because I think Jim was out of the room when
Yes.
Paul brought that up.
The other applicants, go ahead, Paul, it's your,
Yeah, I'll just, Jim, I think you stepped out for a minute.
Never leave the room.
One of the things, and we talked about you at length.
Right?
One of the
Said nice things about me, right?
Of course, as always.
Yeah.
One of the things we talked about was, and I asked the Conservation Commission while they were here, there's other applicants that have applied in the last few days that haven't had the opportunity to either meet with Concom, have their application reviewed, or come forward and meet with us tonight. And one of the things that was brought up earlier by a citizen during citizens' input was, that you guys are all of a sudden having these interviews. Is this purely going to be political in nature? And one of the things I was concerned about is kind of that rubber stamp mentality. And so what I wanted to do is to make sure that everybody had the opportunity to either meet with Concom and they could, once again come back to us and give us their recommendations if that's what they choose, or have us at least reach out or have the ability to speak with each of the applicants that weren't before us tonight.
Fine, the motion wasn't seconded, was it?
yes, I seconded it.
Okay.
But the only thing is, Paul, and I appreciate that, but we need to move on here with some of this stuff. And some of the people who are here, they get impatient with the length of the meeting, which is something they're going to have to deal with when they're in a meeting with Conservation or any other group or ZBA that they have to be with. And they had to leave. I know everybody's got a schedule and everything else, but things never go on time up here. And we need to move on. We keep stacking this back and back and back, and the next agenda gets fuller and fuller and fuller. We haven't been out of here since 10:30, 11 o'clock in months. And you know what? It's time to move on with this.
I don't anticipate that would be a long thing. I mean, I'm not asking for these people to come come before us in another meeting, specifically for that purpose, Mike. I don't want to drag it on, but at least give them the opportunity to reach out to us in the Concom and say, here are my qualifications, here's why I'd like to be on the committee. Just in the interest of making sure that everybody's had that opportunity, Mark. And one of the things I want to avoid, Jim, that I talked about earlier is getting in the way of Concom doing their work over the next couple of weeks, if that's what we decide to do, that they're able to have a quorum and act on what they need to act on. And I think, I was comfortable that they're willing to do that.
Well, what would be the procedure if we were to not go forward on the motion because to honor what you had said when I was not out of the room?
I would, what I suggest, and I mean, we can talk about it, is that Harold Blomberg, I think we have a level of comfort. He's so long on the board. He's, a renewal. I'd be comfortable in recommending approval of him tonight. That way they can have the quorum, they can meet. And then just on the other two spots on Conservation Commission, we wait until everybody's been contacted and then simply bring it up as an action item or under old business the following
Paul,
meeting.
just so that you are aware, everybody knew about the meeting tonight. There
They
isn't
did.
one person that came before you that I didn't notify. Everyone. Every application in there, every person either had a letter or the one individual who brought his information in last minute, and I really pushed to get it in before the board. I explained to him what time the meeting was. I wrote it down for him so he did have it. And I also made copies so that conservation, every application in here has been copied to the appropriate board.
Okay. All right.
If that puts you at ease
No,
at
that's
all.
good information. It does. I mean, I just want to make sure that there's not a perception out there that there were people that didn't have the opportunity to come before us, that there was, scheduling stuff, and we weren't amenable to allowing a couple extra days, to speak with them.
No, and I understand your concerns, and I don't think anybody's going to think that with the openness of this meeting, Paul. But we need to move on. We need to start this thing moving a little better because we're bogging down Sandy with all this stuff, and she's done her job. They were properly notified. Let's move on. The man was here. The man left.
Well, it's up to, whatever the board wants me to do. I work for you.
I
That's what I'll
understand
do.
that, but-
If you want to carry these over for months and months and months, that's my job. I just want you to be aware that I would never have anybody come in without everybody being on the same playing field and being notified.
We're not. I don't. We appreciate the work that you do and that you do have to notify. My concern is that there was a representation made that we were going to entertain two-week period before making the final two appointments to Concom. And if the board decides to go through this process on an annual basis, it probably should start earlier, but it's a way to get people, especially new people, get them interested in the process. And if you think that it would be beneficial to wait 2 more weeks to make the final two appointments, I'm willing to do that. I think we had a couple of strong applicants come in. I had some questions about Mr. Marshall's town employment. I don't think he satisfied my concerns. They did. They stayed. They waited. They were forthcoming with their answers. I didn't agree with everything that they said. They probably didn't like some of my questions, but
And you got
they
one
were here.
person who left the room, James, because he couldn't stay any longer. The other person took out their application. Now what if somebody else sees the meeting, they want to now apply to be on Concom? We're going to wait 2 more weeks to interview? We need to move on with this. I'm totally disagreeing that we need to move on with this.
Though, you're right, and
It's
Mark,
just
I'm not gonna dig my heels in if it's gonna cause you this much.
It is, because we need to move on as a board. We've done our due diligence to represent the people in this town, to come forward and do what they want to do, and they've come forward. We've done our interviews. We've already held up a ZBA meeting or 2. It's time to move on. So Jim made the motion, I seconded it. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we appoint as a full member of the Zoning Board of Appeals for a 3-year term, Eric McKenzie, and to appoint as alternates to the zoning board of appeals for one-year terms, James Neal Forster and Lee Estabrook.
Second. Any discussion? It's exactly what I had in mind. All those in favor?
Aye. And I'd like to just move a resolution that we notify the planning board that this board would favorably consider a reappointment of Gordon Green as the planning board associate member.
Before you do that, James, I had that discussion today, and Kevin actually asked me not to do that.
I'll ask him that there be a resolution, that there be sense on this board that we would support the reappointment, not that we make the motion. I'm willing to wait for them to come in.
I agree. Not a
Okay.
motion, I'm sorry. You're
Just
right.
a
That's already
resolution
done.
that
Right, no, I agree.
you could, Sandra, maybe if your office could just communicate with them and the board has resolved to consider favorably that application at the joint meeting?
Fine. Anything else?
Yes. Okay, we have a number of major projects that we are not paying attention to, and we didn't pay attention to them last year when I sat in that chair, Mark, and it's my hope that you'll demonstrate some leadership on these, where perhaps I've suffered some criticism for not having led on them. But one of them is the water and sewer project that, for sewers. We need to, I think this board needs to take the leadership role on that. We need to have a discussion relatively quickly on how it's going to be funded. We should have an assessment done of the road work. We should ask Mr. Swanson to come in and tell us what he thinks the cost, the value of those roads are. I think it would make sense if we asked Mr. Caspara, Mr. Scollins, and Ms. Simons to come in and talk about whether or not that project is really going to generate new growth downtown, and if so, could we get a quantity of value so that we as a board can make a determination as to whether we would support a 2.5 override or a debt exclusion on a ballot for that project. I know you have a subcommittee, or you've been working with Mr. Caspara, Mark. We really need to hear that town hall report. Let's find out as a board what you're expecting the cost of that to be, whether or not you've identified areas that we could use for funding, whether there's going to be, whether there's asbestos to be removed and all the things associated with the renovation. Do we then have to move forward on a plan to relocate? Do we have to start looking at that? I think that as a board, we have to pay very close attention to the Foxborough High School project. I'm now a little bit confused as to how the funding is going to work, whether or not we have already qualified for a certain amount of funding, whether that is done, or what further action do we have to take as a board. But we really should ask maybe a school committee member or Paul Jackson or the superintendent to come in and brief us, let us know where that project stands so that the town knows when to expect some word from us as to what the town's share is going to be in that project. We have an RFP, I believe. Andy was writing an RFP for town council. And is it gone out?
No, we haven't sent it out yet.
So we're going to have to be paying attention to responses to that RFP. It's important that we move forward with that project, depending on what responses we get. We have the issue that we haven't dealt with as a board regarding the Verizon's request that we essentially repeal the bylaw that prevents them from, or so they say, from bringing a FiOS in. It's an issue that we should deal with, I think, before the end of June. So those things, I know it's late and we still have work to do, but I would respectfully request that as a board, we carve out some time at our next meeting to set forward some kind of calendar on how we're going to deal with these issues.
I agree. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be the next meeting because Sandy's got a really stoked up agenda as it is. But I think we could definitely get it on the next meeting. I'm working on two of those things I have the answers for right now, James. Not in whole hot, but I could inform you a lot on it, but I'd rather be here with my other people and the committee members with me. Okay? But What do you want to schedule that for the 20?
Did you make note of those things so that Mark has them? Did you, do you,
Do you have a list
you
there?
give that list to Mark so that he can make his judgment on,
Prioritizing.
which agenda?
Well, I
he's
know
going
Mr. Mott, Superintendent Mott's coming, the school year's almost over, I'm trying to let them get through that, but I have been in conversation with them, and that's actually what I want Paul to be doing, because it's the budgetary things, this is part of the budget, you know, so that's something Paul, hope Paul will get on. And,
I guess part of my point is these issues require our attention, and the only time we work is Tuesdays.
yeah, no, actually not really.
It's every other
It's the
Tuesday.
only time we meet.
We go out as representatives of the entire community and try to get some information, but we only work every other Tuesday. And we need to, I believe as a board, we need to spend some time working on these projects and discussing them and inviting in the people who have information that will impact on how we decide to deal with these issues at a regular meeting. Or meet every Tuesday, which, I mean, we all put in plenty of time here, folks. I know that. But these issues aren't going away, and they're getting increasingly more important. And we need to move them.
Well, we just need some answers. They're moving. It's just, you know, as far as the, if you want, I'll have to read the list tonight instead of writing it down. I'll just, if you hand me that, I will take care of it.
I
I'll have
think
it
you've
for you.
got,
It's in the minutes.
I think I have most of it.
yeah, it's not, I didn't include everything that I wrote down here.
Okay.
I cut it, so. It's
Anything
up to
else
you
to add?
whether you want to discuss.
No, I actually agree with you on that. It's,
I just put it out there.
it's just a couple of things that just, I gotta tweak a little bit.
Yeah, I would say, me personally, I do think those are important things. I wouldn't be against an extra Tuesday meeting sandwiched in between our regular meetings.
We realize we've had 7 out of the last 9 Tuesdays of the meeting, son, and I will call you son. My son's plays wrestling every Tuesday night, and the special meetings, I can't go to the wrestling, and that upsets me.
What time
So
is this
special
wrestling?
meetings make me cringe,
Mm-hmm.
all right? But I do appreciate your input, but it's a board's vote, not just mine.
What time is your conflict?
My conflict, it's at 7 to 8:30. And that's what happens,
You
Paul.
accommodated me, I had a baseball game and the board agreed to meet at 8, and I think that.
Right.
Okay,
Well,
can I ask you, Jimmy, I'm sorry, Bob.
it's just the fact that, you know what, you're not just asking this board to meet, you're asking Sandy to do more work, you're asking Andy to do
That's
more
what
work.
you're paid to do.
I understand that, but
Sorry about that.
That's what
The executive
my
board of the
job.
town is trying to.
I'll tell you right
do
now,
some
as
projects.
chairman of this board, we're not gonna have a meeting every Tuesday.
The only
No
thing,
way.
The only thing I would advise you of is that I did talk to the attorneys for the stadium, and I was trying to find out, because of vacations coming up, and I need to be here when the liquor licenses come in. We are going to be expecting some more of those, so you know, I have a Patriots, the New England Patriots football game hearing is coming up. So probably if you want to start scheduling one of those things at each meeting, but if you could just let me know as soon as possible, because you probably want to have, you know, people like the school committee come in early and not 8:30 at night. I don't know.
I'll work with you on the agenda, Sandra, all right? Okay, anything else? Okay. Make a motion that we exit open session to go in executive session to discuss legal strategy.
Second.
Any discussion?
Then we'll call this.
I'm gonna say, yeah.
If anybody else wants to do them, I'll put it out on that piece of paper.
Yeah,
Does it?
sorry, Paul, you've been here. Do you have anything to say?
Tired. I was watching TV and I thought I'd come up and sit in.
No Celtics game, you come up and watch us battle around, huh?
I don't know, is that?
Okay, I appreciate that, Paul. I forgot to,
Don't worry.
you know.
I mean,
Okay.
I know the routine, I'm not a rookie.
Yeah.
Do you want to, usually with that motion, Mark?
Conservation, with conservation? Commission?
No, we usually say we will exit for the sole purpose of adjourning an open session. You want to?
There you go. All right. I'm gonna do it this way, Paul. All those in favor?
Aye.
And then roll call, Linda?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Paul Mortensen?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Mark Sullivan, yes. Okay. 5-minute
Paul will see
recess.
I know before midnight.
I hope.
Uh-huh.